Tonight has been eventful. Lives have been reportedly lost, with several people sustaining serious injuries as a result of the pandemonium that broke out hours ago at the Lekki toll gate area of Lagos.
Let them shoot, let them shoot. No problem. No problem. Everyone sit down, sit down, sit down. Let them shoot, let them shoot. No problem. No problem. Everyone sit down, sit down, sit down. Let's go, let's go.
There are now fears that there's an unconfirmed number of fatalities. Before this all started, we have reports that the CCTV cameras and all the lights at the scene were put off, and then the security operatives fired shots, resulting in people scampering to safety.
More rush these people. No, in the escape, now in the escape. May they not do anything in the escape.
I was there because the person that was beside me, the bullet meets the person beside me. I swear, the person that was beside me.
I remember you now, you know me now.
The person was beside me, bullet meet instantly fall down. I got to save myself. I run. Four people. I say I'm going to like this. 4 people.
I was aware when they shoot for leg. I was aware of
that. Yeah, put that guy on the bike.
I was aware of it.
Instantly, the people won't bullet me to see instantly where first died. 7 of them instantly where first died. Instantly. One bullet meter for leg.
And now we're hearing that 2 new generation banks along Admiralty Way in Lekki 1 have been set ablaze. But the video that you see right now is from a popular Nigerian disc jockey who was broadcasting live on Instagram from the scene of the protest at the Lekki toll plaza. From the chaotic scene are disturbing pictures that you can see there of some persons shot and others injured. This is coming from the incident shortly after armed operatives fired shots.
You are the key protesters. They have shot so many people. See, soldiers just killed someone now. Soldiers just killed someone now. Soldiers just killed someone now. They just killed someone now. They just shot someone now. Lekki, see, soldiers just came. No one was fighting. Soldiers came and started killing. See, they killed so many already. See, they shot his leg. They shot so many people. Yeah, see.
Scenes there from the Lekki toll plaza. Now, one of the residents who witnessed the shooting, Professor Patu Tomi, speaks to us on what he observed and the conduct of the protesters soon after a curfew was imposed by the Lagos state government. Let's listen to him.
I live not very far from the Lekki toll plaza, and I was on the deck of the house, and I was actually speaking to somebody in the United States. I had just finished speaking with a Nigerian diplomat friend here in Lagos, analyzing the strategy and wondering if it was not really a worrisome strategy to take an ultimatum of we're going to have a curfew, 24-hour curfew, bearing in mind that the students, the young people are already accusing the authorities of being the ones sending the hoodlums so they can trigger a reason for attacking them. And that if the young people choose to fail to obey, that, the persons who have made such a choice will be left with a difficult, so that in decision making as a manager, I would be wary of taking that kind of position. But the law and other people often react like that. I just finished discussing that with this Nigerian diplomat, and I was talking to somebody in the US when I heard sirens. I was wondering, sirens just kept going, and suddenly I heard gunfire. And I said, oh my God, they're shooting at these kids, And I was talking to somebody in the US as this was going on. And I could hear them, kneel down, they're shooting at us, kneel down, they're shooting at us.
Recall that of course, that the curfew started around 4 p.m. As it is now, there's going to be so much chaos. And the question people are asking is, where do we go from here?
Yeah, I think that authorities dealing with this matter need to be very careful. The youth of Nigeria have become a global tribe. They are all over the planet, and they can run an asymmetrical war against public authority in Nigeria if we don't manage this carefully. And they can operate from a global disposition. And I don't think they want to do that. So everybody making choices should be very, very circumspect of rash decision making. And I hope that God gives everybody the wisdom to behave right.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari today held a closed-door meeting with the Minister of Defense, retired Major General Bashir Magashi, and the Chief of Defense Staff, General Gabriel Olunishakin, at the presidential villa in Abuja. Although details of the meeting are not clear, it may not be unconnected with the security situation in the country arising from the NSAS protests in different parts of the country. Take a look at some of the events that transpired a bit earlier. Following the attack on police facilities and correctional centers in parts of the country by hoodlums, the Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu, ordered an immediate nationwide deployment of anti-riot police units, that's the police mobile force, to protect lives and property of all Nigerians and to secure critical national infrastructure across the country. A statement on their microblogging platform, Twitter, explains that commissioners of police in the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT are to identify and isolate lawbreakers from peaceful protesters and immediately arrest and diligently prosecute such perpetrators of violence in their respective commands. The police went on to say the 12 suspects have been arrested in connection with the attacks and arson on police stations in Guinea, Edo State. 5 AK-47 rifles earlier stolen from vandalized police stations have also been recovered. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, is presenting an action plan for extensive reforms of the Nigerian police. In an address to federal lawmakers during today's plenary, Mr. Gbajabiamila vowed not to sign the 2021 budget unless there was adequate provision to compensate victims of police brutality as well as improve police welfare. The Senate, on the other hand, is demanding that President Muhammadu Buhari urgently address Nigerians on the NSAS protest, which has spread across parts of the country.
There appears to be no stopping these protesters across the country, intent on making certain that government heeds their demands of reforming the Nigerian police. Nothing has so far placated them, neither the disbandment of the notorious Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, nor the setting up of a new police unit, the Special Weapons and Tactics Team, SWAT, to replace SARS. And the Speaker of the House of Representatives seems to be mindful of this.
The House of Representatives has committed to a program of reforms. We resolved to collaborate with the Nigerian Bar Association and the National Human Rights Commission in this effort, and to ensure that draft legislation is ready for consideration within 30 days. None of these actions have sufficed to convince the ever-growing numbers of protesters to withdraw from the continued agitation. From Lagos to Awkuzu, from Port Harcourt to Kano, Abuja and Enugu, The protests have continued relentlessly with good cause. Whatever else may be driving this moment, our people expect more than commitments.
The Speaker itemizes some of the actions he says the House of Representatives will be taking to address the problem of police brutality.
The House will receive and immediately begin to consider legislation that seeks to establish a system of independent, responsive accountability that, 1, holds erring members of the police force to account for their conduct in the performance of their duties. 2, imposes civil and criminal liability for violations of the law and the police regulations. I will not sign off on a 2021 budget that does not include adequate provisions to compensate those who have suffered violence and brutality at the hands of the police in Nigeria in the last decade.
In the Senate, lawmakers are asking President Muhammadu Buhari to, as a matter of urgency, address Nigerians and the End SARS protests.
I think that part of what is going to resolve this issue with immediacy is for the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to look at the issues, address the nation on them. And I think that people will listen, knowing that he has now come out to directly deal with the issue.
The Senate is also appealing to the protesters to embrace dialogue. In the meantime, they are asking the police to protect the protesters to prevent the demonstrations from being hijacked by unscrupulous people.
Huh? In part 2, after the break, we'll take a look at some of people who are wounded at the Lekki Toll Plaza here in Lagos. And the Lagos State government imposes 24-hour curfew to curb the breakdown of law and order as thugs burn down police stations in the state. All coming up in a moment. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Unconfirmed number of people feared dead following gunshots by operatives at the scene of the End SARS protest at the Lekki Toll Plaza in Lagos. Security lights and CCTV cameras disconnected before shots fired. President Muhammadu Buhari engages Minister of Defense and Chief of Defense Staff in an emergency meeting at the State House in Abuja over security situation in the country. House of Representatives rolls out action plan to address demands by End SARS protesters. Speaker Gbajabiamila also insists on having the plans reflect on Budget 2021 before passage. And 5 state governors impose curfew to stem further security breaches and threats. It's been an eventful day indeed. Let's just give you an idea of what we know now. Obviously, lives have been reportedly lost, as we've reported earlier on, and we do have some visuals of wounded persons as well at the toll.
You'll be fine, you'll be fine.
Now, that was as a result of the pandemonium that broke out at the Lekki toll gate when shots were fired. For now, there are fears that there are an unconfirmed number of fatalities, casualties as well. As we reported before all that started out, CCTV cameras and the lights at the scene were put off as well. Of course, our eye is still on that area. Now, the presidential panel on alleged human rights violations by operatives of the now disbanded Special Anti-Robbery Squad has recommended the prosecution of 33 officers. The panel, chaired by the Executive Secretary of the National Human Rights Commission, Tony Ojukwu, released its report today, and some of its recommendations include a monetary compensation of 265.77 million naira to victims of human rights violations and the prosecution of 33 SARS officers. The panel also recommended a public apology for over 32 cases of rights violations to be published in newspapers and other means. The once peaceful village on the outskirts of Apo has been turned into a war zone as suspected hoodlums who allegedly chased NSAS protesters into the village went on rampage, burning cars and destroying houses. According to the police in the Federal Capital Territory, 2 persons lost their lives during the incident. Although calm was restored to the community, the attacks were renewed by the hoodlums, which led to reprisals by residents of the area.
This is what is left of Pibasama community in Apo district in the nation's capital. It's reminiscent of a war zone as traders count their losses and residents try to salvage what is left of their belongings.
Force people were doing their demonstration outside this area at Kabuza Junction. Unfortunately, those Muslim people within that ISIS, they mobilized and started burning these cars, cars that belong to people within that region. So Mbuka people, those people that are selling past this area, then went down to douse down the tension. Unfortunately, going down to that area, they saw the mobile people, army people, using tear gas to spray people away.
Around 5:30, they want one person here. So after that, we climbed up that hill. We stayed here. We see them enter inside the village with cutlass and the wood. So we say, here is not supposed to stay here. The best thing, let us go another village. The end, all of us will sleep in bush. In the night, they come out anything. And what surprised me, only Hausa people, their shop, they scatter.
In another part of the nation's capital, specifically Gosa village, NSAS protesters take over the Umar Musa Yaradua Way, cutting off traffic to the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport. The youth march towards the action as they barricade the only bridge linking the airport to the expressway, leaving commuters stranded.
Police don't come beat us here because we say NSAS. We are not blocking Federal Road. We are protesting our own. We are not blocking the road.
See, gas. They are using it to pursue us since. Yes. We are hungry. We have no money to pay the school because we are fighting for our rights. No, women are suffering. We are suffering.
Amid the protests, some FCT indigents support the NSAS protesters.
We as FCT Indigenous Youth Liberation Movement have no hand in the said protest and press briefing admonishing the NSAS protesters to steer clear of the FCT roads. As youths, we strongly believe in the expression of rights of Nigerians as enshrined in the constitution of our country and cannot stop or attempt to prevent any residents of the FCT from exercising such rights.
While the protesters are busy on the Umaru Musa Yaradua Expressway, a reprisal attack takes place at Kabusa Junction, leaving the fruit market in the area razed. Following the order of the Inspector General of Police, armed policemen assisted by soldiers patrol the village as residents walk long distances due to the absence of tricycle riders. With the presence of the military and armed mobile policemen, normalcy appears to have been restored to Apo, which houses the biggest mechanic village in the Federal Capital Territory.
We can now bring you some more pictures of what transpired today, where several people sustained serious injuries as a result of the pandemonium that broke out hours ago at the Lekki toll gate area of Lagos, where gunshots were fired at protesters.
You'll be fine, you'll be fine. His leg, watch his leg.
Let me, I'm coming. I'm coming. I tell all those guys. Wow. This is the one that I move. I move it like this. Okay, to my legs. Let me come back.
Hospital. What happened to you? They shoot us. Now where did this thing happen for now? Not to come from on top of. They knock on for something. Okay.
Well, there are now fears that there's an unconfirmed number of fatalities. Remember that before all this started, we had reports that the CCTV cameras and the lights at the toll gate were turned off and shots were then fired, resulting in them scampering for safety. Several lives were also lost at that shooting. Our eye is still on it, and when we know more, you will also. Now, the message of End SARS seems to be a guise some hoodlums took to the streets across the country, causing mayhem from Orile here in Lagos to Jos in Plateau State. And the stories are the same. Here's a report of how the hoodlums took advantage of the End SARS protest to achieve a separate mission, unleashing violence and burning down police stations, as was the case in Igomu.
This billowing thick, dark smoke coming from the Orile Igomu police station in Lagos gives a vivid picture of an outcome of terror unleashed by hoodlums who took advantage of the End SARS protest. In their hundreds, they attacked the police station, setting it ablaze. Anyone found around this vicinity who perhaps does not buy into their vision was also visited with anger. It was a mob action and definitely not the mission of the End SARS protesters. In Jos Plateau State, hoodlums also took over the streets, attacking innocent citizens who had left their home early, not knowing what was coming their way. They scamper for safety. Some journalists were not spared in the melee. In Edo State, a major highway was blocked.
The police are on their way. The police are on their way.
Shop owners and civil servants sit at home. Oyo State witnessed some tension as hoodlums also seized the opportunity to foment trouble. The End SARS protest may have started with a lot of genuine demands, which government in turn says they are looking into, but the situation in Orile, Ibutemeta, Jos and Benin City run completely different from the End SARS mission. And perhaps this may just be the time for the protesters to review tactics so that their demands are not wrongly interpreted.
Now, our correspondent, Olu Phillips, is live in the Lekki area of Lagos. Let's go to him now. Olu, what fresh information can you tell us now?
IJ, what started some days ago as a peaceful protest, peaceful young people marching through the streets and making their voices heard, has turned into a Black Tuesday here at the Lekki toll plaza, which is just 100 meters away from me. Now, this place used to be well lit by the street lights. Remember that we spoke live here from this spot at 5 p.m., telling the whole world that these people are still peaceful, sitting on the floor, and telling the whole world that they want their government to listen to them. And after that time, just few hours after that time, when it came into darkness, the street lights went off and some folks approached in uniform and opened fire. I'm gonna speak to one or two persons who were very close to some of the firing range and what they have to say. My brother, please can you come? Tell us what exactly happened. Speak up.
So, we were protesting peacefully. After comedian AY approached us, he addressed us. There was nothing. We were still protesting peacefully without any violence at all. Immediately, the street lights, they went off. People started shooting at us. We were able to recognize them. They were putting on uniform. These were the military men, the soldiers. We were lying down, waving our flag, telling them they are protesting peacefully. But yet they refused. They were shooting directly at us. It wasn't to drive us away. It was to kill us.
Okay, I'm gonna let him stop there. I'm gonna bring someone else. IJ, this is live update, and all our equipments are away. We had to improvise these systems. You can see I have some. You can't see, but I have a lot of folks, friends here in front of me. Those who are protesting, and they're pointing their torchlights, phone lights on me to be able to illuminate this place. Look at this man, for instance. He's conveyed a few people to the hospital, and he's got blood stains all over him. I'm going to ask him to step out again. I'm bringing someone else again. Look at this man. This is part of the damages that are happening here at the Lekki toll. Now, IJ, if you think that is not good enough, IJ, look at this. Take a look at this. Take a look at this. Take a look at this.
That's bullets.
This is it.
Bullets.
These are evidences that people were shot. Earlier, we saw some pictures that we sent in of someone who was shot on the thigh. 2 people have been taken to a hospital that we are aware of, but there are more than 9 persons are receiving treatment in various hospitals across this place. This is what is happening here at Lekki toll. I have just a few minutes or few seconds to leave this place because we are now under a guarded area by some of these guys, and they assured me that I couldn't do this for more than 3 to 4 minutes. So IJ, the world, Channels TV, we are speaking live from the Lekki toll plaza. Allow us to leave now for safety because the military men are still around here. It's back to you, IJ.
Thank you, Olu. Whatever you do out there, do stay safe and keep us updated as much as you can while staying safe while you do that. Thanks a lot for that. Well, when the news at 10 returns, Securities and Exchange Commission sets January the 1st, 2021 as deadline for implementation and compliance of the corporate governance guidelines and template. And that will be on business. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the news at 10. Apart from Lagos State, other states that have declared 24-hour curfews today include Ekiti, Osun, Ondo, Imo, and Plateau states. While the curfew applies to all parts of the other states, that of Plateau applies only to just north and just south local government areas. The governors of the states announced the declarations today, citing disturbances from NSAS protests as the reason for the action. Now, more state governments are implementing the recommendation of the National Economic Council by setting up a judicial panel of inquiry to investigate the cases of human rights abuses by operatives of the disbanded Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS. This time, the governors of Anambra, Ebonyi, Cross River, Akwa Ibom, Rivers, as well as Kwara states have keyed into the exercise. We move on now, and in a bid to identify, honor, and reward outstanding teachers in Nigeria, the Nigeria Breweries PLC has held its 6th edition of the Maltina Teacher of the Year. The organizers say this year's edition witnessed an even stronger engagement with all key education stakeholders. The Maltina Teacher of the Year was introduced in 2015 to identify quality teachers.
According to a popular saying, the reward of the teacher is in heaven. But for Maltina, there's a reward on earth too.
History drawn in the palms of our heroes past, men and women of valor.
Which is why every year the Nigerian Bureaus brings together staff, top government officials and stakeholders in the education sector to celebrate quality teachers and education.
For you teachers today.
The Maltina Teacher of the Year, in its 6th edition, seeks to identify, honor and reward outstanding teachers in Nigeria.
Today we are here to recognize, celebrate and motivate some amazing men and women whose stories stand out and serve remind that no society can exist without the solid foundation provided by teachers.
Despite the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, the panel of judges are able to conduct the screening process virtually.
The COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact on all aspects of our existence, including education. But we have witnessed the resilient spirit of our teachers who have had to find new ways to teach virtually, despite the technological challenge and limits of our environment.
As usual, champions from each state are awarded prizes of 500,000 naira each. Then it's time to announce the Maltina Teacher of the Year.
And the winner is Oluwabumi Anina.
Oluwabumi Anani, an English teacher in Concordial College, Yola in Adamawa State, takes home 1 million naira cash for the next 5 years, plus a capacity development training abroad. Her school also receives a fully equipped computer laboratory or a 6-classroom block worth 20 million naira.
Thank you for putting a smile on my face, not just on my face, but on the faces of every teacher who has had the privilege to be part of this dream.
The Maltina Teacher of the Year was introduced in 2015 to recognize and celebrate exceptional teachers in Nigeria.
Although the coronavirus pandemic may have challenged various systems, including the health sector, it's also raised more consciousness on healthy diets and lifestyle. And that's why health experts at the Chivita World Juice Day event, hosted by leading fruit juice brand Chi Limited, are encouraging Nigerians to adopt the daily consumption of 100% fruit juice as a way of ensuring overall wellness.
It helps to boost immunity.
It's the second edition of the Chivita World Juice Day, aimed at deepening conversations on the adoption of 100% fruit juice consumption as a smart choice in daily health routines.
100% fruit juice should be recommended to support the intake of whole fruits and vegetables, which may not be taken in adequate quantity daily due to seasonal availability of fruits and vegetables, to be able to achieve a 5-a-day WHO recommendations.
The event, which is largely virtual, also features a panel session where talks revolve around measures to achieve an optimum functioning of the body's immune system.
If you look at, people talk about vitamin C a lot, but there are so many other things which orange juice, 100% orange juice, or Chivita 100% orange juice has. So, for example, there are, very high levels of magnesium, calcium. In fact, I remember reading somewhere that orange juice has more calcium than milk, and you would tend to imagine that milk is a rich source of calcium. So there's a whole wealth of information and great stuff sitting inside the glass.
The company says there is more in the works to ensure that the education of consumers on the benefits of natural fruit juice consumption is sustained.
Per capita consumption of juice in this country is so low. It's actually 2 liters in Nigeria, 2 liters per year per person. The Africa average is 8 liters, and globally it's 20 liters. So that's really low. And with the hectic, active lifestyles that we live, it's important that at least we complement our diet with 100% fruit juice to ensure that we're actually being able to get a healthy, balanced diet. So we started these conversations. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback thus far, and we're confident that we want to continue the conversations.
In the health sector, we hold them in very, very high esteem because we love to have feedbacks from them. Let's improve on our products and what we do to make our consumers even happier.
Though the World Fruit Juice Day is celebrated on October the 17th every year, Chi Limited hopes to leverage on this platform to foster a healthier lifestyle among Nigerians.
Let's take a look at our breaking lead story now concerning what's going on at the Lekki Toll Plaza and other related events. The Lagos State government has ordered investigations into the shooting at the Lekki Toll Plaza, where NSAS protesters have been holding demonstrations for the past couple of days. In a statement by the State Commissioner of Information, Benga Omotosho, the state governor is advising security agents not to arrest anyone on account of the curfew, which he urges residents to observe for a peaceful atmosphere for all. He also advises Lagosians to remain calm and not to allow criminals who have hijacked the noble protest of the youths to succeed in their evil plan of turning the state upside down. Now we have some more reports concerning the NSAS protests across the country, different states as well that we're looking at. Let's take a look at some of them.
The protesters' demand has not changed. They want government to embark on a total overhaul of the Nigeria police force. They come out in their large numbers in Lekki area of Lagos, most of them young people who say they are tired of police intimidation and harassment.
This place was not organized because you have a few good guys that were here, but they were outnumbered by those that don't even understand why we are protesting in the first place. We called a few good men, called the security outfits, and we are here. As you can see, there is access. The guys have listened, they've all moved, there's access, and the road is free. Nobody's being threatened again.
Businesses grind to a halt around Ikeja and Agege. The governor of the state steps in, announcing a curfew. It was rough in Berger and the adjoining Lagos-Ibadan highway, where the NSAS protesters cordoned off the road. But the Ogun State governor is given assurances that the government will not allow things to degenerate into anarchy.
We as government that's charged in securing the lives and property of every citizen of the state will not sit back and watch legitimate protests degenerate into anarchy.
In Benue State, the youth decide to visit the government house, where they request protection to carry on their procession.
We as leaders in this country, we have truly failed the Nigerians and the people of this country. And we must devise better ways of making sure that we correct their anomalies.
It's not different in Enugu State, where most of the youth also demand for an end to police brutality. At the police command, they get the attention of the Commissioner of Police.
By the day that the unit was disbanded, they had 11 suspects. Out of the 11 suspects, one was on court order, while 10 were being investigated.
In Taraba, the protesters demand for good governance, end SARS, as well as an end to the insecurity in the state. Like in most states, young people of Akwa Ibom occupy Ibom Plaza, preventing vehicular movement. In Port Harcourt, it was a mixed bag of some youth calling for dialogue with the federal government after the government agreed to the now popular 5 for 5 demand, while another group of NSAS protesters are insisting on seeing clear action from authorities before they can call off the protest nationwide.
We sincerely appreciate you and assure you that you will see a different police, different policing, fighting crime in the best professional way, in international approved ways.
The message from the youth is the same. They want an end to bad governance, police harassment and brutality, and an end to corruption. The government on its part says it's willing to address the situation, but that, of course, it needs time to do that.
From there, let's take a look at some business news for the day. And here's Anne Wilder.
Thanks a lot, Ijoma. Hello and welcome to Business News. The Securities and Exchange Commission has set the 1st of January 2021 as deadline for the implementation of corporate governance guidelines and template. In a statement released today, the director also directed public companies to comply with these requirements of the revised Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018, which has now become a mandatory reporting template. The capital market regulator also mentions that some provisions of the document can be found on its website, and that's www.sec.gov.ng. The Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance, which was issued by the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria back in 2018, replaces all existing sectorial codes of corporate governance in the country. The Industrial Training Fund has identified industrial training and vocational skills as prerequisite for the addressing job mismatch in Nigeria. Job mismatch is generally defined as a worker in a job that does not correspond with his or her level of qualification. At a meeting in Abuja, the nation's capital, the Director General of the ITF, Mr. Joseph Ari, explains that the current spate of unemployment in the country is existing vacancies is indicative of a gap in the education system. Let's talk about the stock market now. Despite the nationwide protest against human rights violations by police, which enters its 14th day, the stock market has eked out some gains at the close of business. Chimezie Obiwagu has the details for us.
Thank you and welcome to the Stock Market Report. You might describe the market as resilient as the bull maintains its stand. But the truth is that the unrest in the country is beginning to weigh on investor sentiment. The market was on the green in early session, but after the 24-hour curfew was announced by the Lagos state government, the index tilted to the red zone. But just a minute to the close of trading, the prices of Nigerian breweries and flour mill gained, and that helped the market to soft land back in the green. Lagos, we know, is the commercial capital of Nigeria, and for it to be under curfew could imply the entire Nigeria is under curfew, and so investors would not want to bet their money for it. Look at today's activity, quite minimal compared to what we've seen in the past sessions. Just about 297 million shares were traded in 4,736 deals valued at close to 3 billion naira. And when you look at the sectoral chart, all the sectors were in the red except the consumer goods sector. For now, there is nothing to cheer about. We can only hope the government matches their words with actions to curtail the unrest. Until then, optimism can only be a watchword. And that was the Stock Market Report. I'm Chimezie Obiwagu.
And that's Business News tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. It's back to you, Joma.
Thanks a lot, Anne. The U.S. has filed charges against internet search giant Google, accusing it of violating competition law to preserve its monopoly over internet searches and online advertising. It's the biggest lawsuit brought by U.S. regulators against a major tech company in years and follows more than a year of investigation, and as Google and other big tech firms face scrutiny of their practices at home and abroad. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news in Around the World in 5.
Evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The UK is pushing ahead to be the first nation to carry out human challenge studies where up to 90 healthy exposed people will be deliberately exposed to coronavirus. The trials, which could begin in January, aim to speed up the race to get a COVID-19 vaccine. The government has announced it will put £33.6 million towards the groundbreaking work. Experts have insisted that safety will be a #1 priority. The plans will need ethical approval and sign-off from regulators before they can go ahead. Meanwhile, anti-coronavirus restrictions in the UK's continental neighbours have been ramped up. The Italian region of Lombardy has asked the national government to impose a regional curfew from Thursday amid predictions of a steep rise in the use of intensive care beds. France has reported more than 2,000 people in intensive care for the first time since May. More than half the intensive care beds in the Paris region are in use. US President Donald Trump and his Democrat rival Joe Biden will have their microphones muted for part of their final pre-election debate on Thursday.
And you'll get to see.
It comes after a heated first debate marked by ill-tempered exchanges and frequent interruptions on both sides, but predominantly by the president. Both Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden will be given 2 minutes to make their remarks without interruption from the other candidate. Microphones will then be unmuted for questions. Meanwhile, President Trump has said Sudan will come off a list of state sponsors of terror if it pays compensation of $335 million. Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok has responded by saying the funds have been transferred, but there has been no immediate US confirmation. Sudan has been listed since 1993, when al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden lived there as a guest of the government. The compensation relates to al-Qaeda's 1998 bombing of US embassies in Africa. Guinea's opposition leader, Celo Dalien Diallo, has declared himself the winner of Sunday's presidential election, despite the fact that official results have not yet been announced. The Electoral Commission has said vote counting is still ongoing and that it is the only body mandated to announce the winner. But earlier, Mr. Diallo told journalists and his supporters that he won the first round despite anomalies. Mr. Diallo's supporters, who took to the streets to celebrate, have been dispersed by police. In Colombia, thousands of indigenous people have taken to the capital Bogotá's streets to demand an end to violence against social leaders and mass killings. President Iván Duque dispatched a delegation of ministers and other high-level officials to hold talks with indigenous groups, but the leaders declined to meet them, insisting they would only hold government-to-government talks with the president. The protesters have called for policies to guarantee the well-being of Colombians and indigenous people. Danish submarine builder Peter Madsen, who murdered the Swedish journalist Kim Wall, has been caught after trying to escape from jail. Police have said they arrested a man near the jail, but have so far refused to confirm his identity. Madsen was jailed for life for Kim Wall's murder. She boarded his homemade submarine for an interview in 2017. Her body was discovered on a beach by a passerby 11 days later. Vietnam is bracing for yet another storm as the death toll from floods and landslides triggered by heavy rain since early October has mounted to at least 105, with dozens of people still missing. Vietnam's weather agency is expecting the storm to arrive in its central region on Saturday, bringing more intense rains, risking exacerbating its worst flooding in years. At least 178,000 homes and nearly 7,000 hectares of crops have been impacted so far, and 700,000 farm animals have died. That's according to official data. And finally, freestylers have showcased their outrageous skills in a soccer challenge. Over 201 men and 64 women submitted 30-second videos presenting their skills for the first round of a worldwide competition. After a series of eliminations from which the players' performances can be viewed online, only 16 men and 8 women reached the final round. The final will be held on November the 14th, where a man and a woman will be crowned as the world's best football freestylers.
Well, I think it's really attractive for people to see such a high level when you do tricks with a football, and what makes it more exciting is the battle.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thanks a lot, Simon. Let's take a look at some sports now. Here's Ayotunde Balogun.
Many thanks, Ijoma. The Nigeria Football Federation, the NFF, has endorsed a proposal by the LMC, that's the League Management Company, for the 2020-21 Nigeria Professional Football League season to commence from Sunday, November the 15th. This followed the lifting of ban on football activities in the country by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 last week. The NFF mandated the LMC to ensure full adherence to the health and safety protocols and club licensing regulations. Kano Pillars FC have appointed Frenchman Lionel Sequoia as their head coach. Sequoia will lead the Nigeria FA Cup holders to the 2020-21 CAF Confederation Cup. He will be unveiled tomorrow after signing a one-year contract with the football club. In the UEFA Champions League, Chelsea have suffered a frustrating start to their campaign after being held by Sevilla. The first goalless draw under Frank Lampard. Ciro Immobile, Luis Felipe and John Daniel Akpa scored as Lazio held on for a 3-1 win against Borussia Dortmund. Alvaro Morata struck twice as Juventus made light of Cristiano Ronaldo's absence to win 2-0 at Dinamo Kiev. Lionel Messi scored in a joint record 16th season, and 17-year-old Pedri netted his first senior goal as Barcelona thrashed Ferencváros 5-1. And Marcus Rashford repeated his late heroics with a superb winner as Man United defeated Paris Saint-Germain. And the Handball Federation of Nigeria has postponed the Premier League by a week following violence from protests against police brutality. The league, which has been scheduled to commence on October the 23rd, will now hold October the 30th. The Handball Federation of Nigeria says the decision was taken to ensure safety of players and officials of participating clubs. And that's a wrap on sports news. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. It's back to you, John.
Thanks a lot, Ayotunde. And the main news again. It's been an eventful day as unconfirmed number of people feared dead and many seriously injured following gunshots by operatives at the scene of the End-SARS protest at the Lekki Toll Plaza in Lagos. Security lights and CCTV cameras were disconnected before gunshots were fired at the protesters. Also today, 3 new generation banks have been set ablaze along Admiralty Way in the Lekki area of Lagos. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks so much for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Do have a good night.